The 60 Minutes interview is out, friends. I watched the whole thing just because I wanted to give a nice reminder to myself as we go in to actually cast our ballots here. Nice reminder of just how fake the fake news really is. I mean, what a bunch of frauds they actually are. That's what I want us all to know. And it also raised some questions for me, like, what does it take to become a 60 Minutes correspondent? And you just got to be, is it like Biden? You just got to be around forever and never want to give up power, never want to stop hoarding the, productive positions and resources of society, me, until you get to be 100? Is that how it works? I'm just wondering. Leslie Stahl, what does this person know about anything? What exactly am I supposed to be impressed by here? She has the presentation. She's kind of like a poor man's Barbara Walters. Is that it? Or maybe Barbara Walters is a poor man's Leslie Stahl. I don't know. But, this sort of grand dame of the mainstream news or whatever. What is, it says Katie Couric, but she was younger. I'm trying to think. There's a few others that are in this category too. But why does anyone listen to them? What do they do that makes someone think, oh yeah, you know what I really care about? What the Leslie Stahl questions are in this one. Anyway, I'm not surprised at all. We see what happened. I think they put up the full interview now because Trump was threatening to put up the full interview. And it's a good thing that he did, because what you see is that Leslie Stahl it's just horrible. The whole thing was awful. Every question is an attack on the president. She doesn't ask him, what have you done that's positive about COVID, and what would you do in the future? She says, how do you feel about the fact, I'm paraphrasing, I'm giving you a version here, an exaggeration or whatever, but it's some type of, why are you the worst ever at dealing with COVID? Please discuss, right? It always starts from a position of negativity toward the president. He picks up on this. He's very aware of it. And here you go. Here's what President Trump says to her. Play 2.
I wish you would interview Joe Biden like you interview me. It would be so good. You know what?
You like this, I thought. I thought you liked
it. I don't mind it. But when I watch him walk out of a store, and he's walking with an ice cream, and the question the media asks him, what kind of ice cream, what flavor ice cream do you have? And he's in the midst of a scandal.
He's not.
And he's taking...
He's
of course
not.
he is,
No.
Leslie.
Come on.
Of course he is. It's the biggest, second biggest scandal.
So,
the biggest scandal was when they spied on my campaign. They spied on my campaign,
there's
Leslie.
no real evidence of that.
Of course there is. It's all over the place. Leslie,
Sir,
they spied on my campaign and they got caught.
Can I say something? This is 60 Minutes. And we can't put on things we can't verify.
You won't put it on because it's bad for Biden.
We can't put on things we can't verify.
Leslie, they spied on my campaign.
Well, we can't verify
It's been totally verified.
No.
It's been, just go down and get the papers. They spied on my campaign, they got caught.
No.
And then they went much further than that, and they got caught. And you will see that, Leslie, and you know that, but you just don't want to put it on the air.
As a matter of fact, I don't know that.
Okay.
So what does she know? Has she been asleep for the last 4 years? What do we call the Attorney General of the United States, sitting Attorney General, said that there was spying on the campaign. The highest law enforcement officer in the United States, yes, there was spying on the Trump campaign. Remember that? The whole Bill Barr, oh my gosh, he said spying. And he goes, yeah, it's called spying. That's what happened. Does she not know that? Oh, we can't verify. We can't put things on that we can't verify. This is a new trick, a new tool in the fake news media toolkit, where when they don't want to talk about something, they pretend that you can't really verify it. And this really does go to what you'll have with the most extreme conspiracy theorists. Here's a really easy way for conspiracy theorists to argue everything. I'll say, guys, come on, the country wasn't founded by lizard people from the planet Zargon. The country was actually founded by the founding fathers, George Washington. They'll say, yeah, were you there? Do you show me a photograph? Do you know? What proof do you have? And normal people understand that this is insane, but Democrats do a version of this now. Oh, well, we can't report on the Hunter Biden emails because we don't have the hard drive ourselves, or we can't verify that it's not Russian disinformation. Well, then try. Your job is to verify things. Like, what do you mean you can't verify this? But the Democrats did this as well. It's deeply intellectually disingenuous, but this is what they do. The Democrats did this, you remember, with under the Obama administration when there were a lot of mass casualty terror attacks that would happen. Remember all those ISIS-inspired attacks? San Bernardino massacre, the Pulse nightclub mass shooting, mass murder. There were these big attacks that happened. And the people who did them, I mean, in the case of the Pulse nightclub, was that guy, Omar Mateen. He's on the phone. He's like, I am doing this for ISIS. I am doing this for jihad and for Allah. And then the Obama FBI, this should have been a big tip-off, right? Oh, the FBI. Yeah, it was the Obama FBI. The Obama FBI redacted parts of the transcript for things like, I pledge allegiance to redacted. Why? We all know what he's saying, you know? I'm doing this in support of my brothers and sisters in redacted. And they would do this thing of, we may never know the real motive. Remember that game? We may never know the real motive. Okay, well, we'll really extrapolate that one out. Really go with that for a minute. Can you ever really know the real motive? Can you know the real motive if somebody confesses on video and says, I did this because of, X, Y, and Z? Maybe they're lying. Doesn't matter what proof you have. You can't get inside that person's head. You can never know the real motive. But notice they only do this when they don't want to talk about radical Islam and jihad, because the Obama administration was running around bowing to the Islamic world, begging forgiveness for all of the bad stuff America has done. You remember that? So then it didn't look good when they were when they were inspired, I should say, within our own country to murder their fellow human beings in the name of a political entity known as ISIS. That was a bunch of head-chopping, women-raping, evil murderers who all deserve to die in a pink mist, courtesy of the United States military. Thank you very much for those men and women serving who were part of that effort. So you can always play this game. We may never know the real motive. And Leslie Stahl, 60 Minutes correspondent, we can't verify that. Well, if you're going to say that there's such a thing as Russian disinformation that looks at Russian disinformation that plants the laptop, gets to gets to Hunter Biden's private photos, knows all of his contacts, puts all the email. I mean, yeah, you can always say, oh, it's a super deep fake. This is like people that talk about moon landing stuff, right? Oh, it's all a deep fake. Usually you laugh at them. The Democrats are now the actual conspiracy theorists, you see? When they have facts and evidence that goes against, here's Leslie Stahl. We can't verify your campaign was spied on. Okay, other than the mountains of evidence provided by congressional investigation as well as by the Attorney General of the United States, who also stated openly that, yes, there was spying. Can't verify that, though? She makes it sound like we're not going to air that on TV. She's a partisan lib imbecile. But she plays her part, probably makes $2-3 million a year to show up there. And is not a very good interviewer. Another part of this, just not very good at this. That's one thing that I've always found so interesting. I mean, Brian Stelter, I'll never forget this guy. The one time he had me on his show, he tried to come at me. This is when I was a CNN contributor years ago. Tried to come at me on some issue of terrorism and how I knew that something was radical Islam versus, it was actually a version of we may never know the motive. Brian Stelter wanted to ambush me on his show about we may never know the motive. And it's like, okay, Brian, I actually have expertise in this area and got about 15 to 20 IQ points on you. So good luck with this one. And he looked very foolish in the interview. They never even told me. They just cut it out of the show. It was a pre-tape. They just cut it out of the show. It was on a Friday. They cut it out for Sunday. But I also remember this guy. I had never seen anyone at that point who had his own show on cable news, with the exception of Ronan Farrow, who looked like, a lost kindergartner. Like, I've got my own show. Look, MSNBC. I've never seen somebody with such unbelievable lack of TV skills, basic TV skills, reading off a prompter, interviewing, asking questions, who had their own show on cable news. It was remarkable, right? That was Brian Stelter. There are others like that, too, who the moment they don't have a staff of, some of these CNN shows have 20, 30 people working on the staff, sending them research, writing all their questions or whatever. The moment that's gone, all of a sudden you go, is this person even very well informed? Is this person particularly bright? The answer is no. But they've played the game. They do what they're supposed to, and they rise anyway. It's all smoke and mirrors, friends. There's so much of this in the mainstream media, so much of this in the mainstream news divisions of all these different networks. Basically, the elevation of highly self-involved, narcissistic Democrat dumbasses into positions where we're all supposed to go, oh, well, they're the height of journalism. Yeah, you mean like Dan Rather? You mean like Brian Williams? You mean like Katie Couric? Like Leslie Stahl? Any of these people impressive to you? I'm just a lowly syndicated radio host, man, and on a general test of knowledge of politics or anything else, you know these people would get smoked, right, by yours truly. It wouldn't even be close. It'd be embarrassing for them. Why exactly do we have to listen to them? Why does 60 Minutes get access to the president? Because of the pomp and circumstance around the storied 60 Minutes. It's all just for show, friends. It's not real. No real ethics, no real integrity. And you saw that with this Leslie Stahl thing. And they weren't going to air the whole thing, but they realized what chance did they have here? Trump and all conservatives should do this. And it's a note for me, too. I always want a copy. If I'm ever going into hostile territory again, I want a copy of the whole thing. Now, Bill Maher show, for example, that's live. So live is a little bit different. Live is live. But if you're doing a taped interview, you absolutely have to tape it yourself as a conservative. Otherwise, you get the Daily Show treatment, but they do that to you on actual news shows, right? The Daily Show got away with it because they were a left-wing propaganda show with jokes, but they'll do that to you on 60 Minutes. They'll cut it up, and they'll do this to every Republican politician. They did it to the president himself, but he had a copy of it, so they had to show us the whole thing because otherwise their edited version versus the actual interview would show what a bunch of frauds they are, so they got caught, so they had to edit, and they could not air it, right? That would look even worse. So they put the whole thing out there, and Leslie Stahl looks like a crybaby left-wing idiot, honestly. No different in her political sensibility or awareness of the world around her or sense of fairness than, we might as well have had, Deborah Messing or Suzanne, what's her name? The one, I can't even remember her name, right? The actress that's always out there. All these idiot actresses that go out there that are lecturing us on politics all the time, especially of that generation. Jane Fonda. You might as well have had Jane Fonda do this interview. It would have been the same interview with Trump. Well, why don't you stop making people, go to your rallies and why don't you make them wear masks? Well, we're going to have mask mandate where we're going to have people forcefully remove them from his rallies? Is that really what's supposed to happen? Friends, the fake news media thinks that if Biden wins, it's all going to go back to normal. They don't understand. They have radicalized their opponents in the media. They have radicalized the opposition. I mean, CNN, the only thing that can be done now is to nuke the site from orbit, so to speak, just to be sure. There's no bringing these places back as they currently are configured. You need massive overhauls of leadership, of talent, of mission, all of it. These places are effectively enemy combatants on the ideological battlefield, and that's not going to change in the Biden administration, and we're not going to forget that. I recently got a crash course in home title theft, and you better hope this crime never happens to you because it can leave you financially ruined. It goes after your most valuable asset, your home. Here's how it works. The bad guys, they find your information online for your home's title because it's up there in the cloud. It's stored on servers. So they get into it using cyber hacker means. Then they use a quitclaim deed to kick you off, put themselves on, and start taking out loans against your home. You often won't find out about this until the payment notices arrive in the mail or perhaps even a foreclosure notice. You need to take action today to protect yourself with Home Title Lock. Create a virtual barrier around your home's title. All you have to do is go to HometitleLock.com. Use the promo code RADIO for 30 free days of protection. That's HometitleLock.com. Promo code RADIO for 30 free days of protection. You can also check online at the site to see if you're a victim of this crime and don't even know it. HometitleLock.com. Promo code RADIO.
Do you know what you told me a long time ago when I asked why you keep saying fake media?
Yeah.
You said to me, I say that because I need to discredit you so that when you say negative things about me, no one will believe you.
I don't have to discredit you.
But that's what you told me.
You've discredited yourself.
You know, I didn't want to have this kind of angry.
Of course you did.
No, I didn't.
Of course you did.
No, I didn't.
Well, then you brought up a lot of subjects that
Well, I said
were
I'm going to ask you
inappropriately brought
tough
up.
questions.
They were inappropriately brought up right from the beginning. No, your first question was, this is going to be tough questions.
Why?
You don't ask Joe Biden. I saw your interview with Joe, the interview with Joe Biden.
I never did a Joe Biden interview.
The interview, 60 Minutes. I see Joe Biden giving softball after softball. I've seen all of his interviews. He's never been asked a question that's hard.
Okay, but forget him for a minute.
No, but you start with me.
You're president. And
excuse me, Leslie, you started with me. Your first statement was, are you ready for tough questions?
Are you?
That's no way to talk. It's no way to talk.
Yeah, do you think she sits down with Joe Biden and says, you ready for me to hammer you with biased questions with the premise that you disagree with? You think that's how she would start with Joe Biden? No, I don't think so. I think we all know exactly how that would go. And good for the White House for at least taping it on their end here, because otherwise it would have been another hit piece. Another hit piece that wasn't based on really Trump's answers. It's just the way that they cut it and paste it and pull it all together. And 60 Minutes does this thing too, where they have the narration voice that comes in. So you don't get to actually challenge. It's really quite dishonest. In a situation like this, you don't get to challenge as the interviewee what is being dropped in. They'll say, they'll have the Leslie Stahl asking Trump a question, and then her voice will be interspersed into a moment there where all of a sudden it'll be, we checked on the facts of this, and turns out that what the president said is a lie. And then it just goes back to the interview, and it's like, wait, hold on a second. What? That's what they do. It's all so fraudulent. But this is what they need to do. You have to remember that. You almost feel bad for them because, although I don't feel bad for them, because this is the guy that they say should be president of the United States. Play 8.
This is the most consequential, not because I'm running, but because who I'm running against. This is the most consequential election in a long, long, long time. And the character of the country, in my view, is literally on the ballot. What kind of country we're going to be? 4 more years of George, is going to find ourselves in a position where if Trump gets elected, we're going to be in a different world.
I was going to say that sounds to me like what you would delicately call a senior moment. George Bush, no, wrong. We're to ignore that, right? The guy's having foggy moments. Does anyone think that gets better in 2 or 3 years with this guy as president? Oh, that's right. They don't care because then Kamala gets to take over. And Kamala checks the identity politics boxes for the left and will do exactly what the Democrat Party wants. We'll get into Kamala Harris in a moment. She also was interviewed over the weekend. Some important notes there about her. But Joe Biden was always saying he's going to listen to the experts, and that's the big difference between Trump and him. Notice how dismissive he is about a University of Chicago medical school trained MD who was chief of neuroradiology at Stanford University Medical Center. Notice how Biden talks about that expert. Play 4.
Dr. Scott Atlas, and he is advocating young people go about their business and older people sequester.
Nobody thinks it makes any sense. Nobody. No serious doc around the world.
No serious doctor. This is like how they talk about climate change. That's a lie. There are thousands of doctors who have signed a statement that is supportive of exactly what was raised there, which is focus protection, protect the elderly and those with chronic conditions and those at high risk, and let everybody else effectively go through their lives normally. The Great Barrington Declaration, thousands and thousands of doctors, including from places like Stanford and Oxford and Harvard and Yale, they have signed that. So here's Biden telling you no one agrees with him. Well, that's a lie. Okay, team, what is the latest with these Hunter Biden emails, the investigation into Biden family corruption, and also what's going on in the absolutely pivotal state of Ohio just days before this election? We got Congressman Jim Jordan with us now to answer these questions. Congressman, thanks for being with us.
Good to be with you, Buck.
So the Hunter Biden emails, a lot of attention on the right for this last week. came up in the debates. Nothing really all that memorable in the exchange from at least what the polls afterward showed. What can you say about, should we expect more, and is this going to matter?
Well, it should matter, but the mainstream press won't report it, and even those handful who will, Twitter and Facebook censor it. But I mean, the facts are not in question. I mean, we have the drop slip. Hunter Biden signed the drop slip when he dropped the laptop off at his store in Delaware. We have the Director of National Intelligence and the FBI both saying this is not Russian disinformation. We have an eyewitness who says the laptop is real, the emails are real, and that the one email which references the big guy is in fact a reference to the vice president. And that same eyewitness has actually met with Vice President Biden. So the facts are not in question whatsoever. But again, the mainstream press won't report it. I think the American people are figuring this out, and it is going to have an impact on the election. It's going to help President Trump win.
How would it be possible because the Joe Biden connection to Hunter Biden's activities, that seems to be the place where there would be real political vulnerability, right? That's straight up corruption. And I also wonder how that could be legal. It feels like we're not going to find out before the election if there is some connection there because of the financial investigation that would have to go on and who's even going to do that. But could we find out? I mean, your committee, could you guys actually get that information?
Well, it'd be tough because, Jerry Nadler is not going to want to do what Republicans are going to want to do on our committee. But frankly, it sort of raises the question, why wasn't this looked into earlier? I mean, Chris Wray has had this laptop for a while. Why just now interview the business partner, Mr. Bobolinsky? Why just now start to look into it? Why didn't Chris Wray look into this earlier? But frankly, it's sort of a pattern with the head of the FBI because, remember, it took Rick Grinnell to release the transcripts of these people who told us that there was nothing there, no Russian collusion on that issue. So that to me is a big question that I think needs answered as well. It'd be nice if the Senate, maybe Mr. Grassley or Mr. Johnson, would ask Christopher Wray that question in front of a committee at some point here soon.
We're talking to Congressman Jim Jordan of Ohio. Congressman, the FBI director, there's at least some reporting saying that the president may choose to very soon after, assuming he's reelected, ask for a resignation. Would you support, let's just call it what it is. Would you support the firing of FBI Director Christopher Wray?
Well, that's totally up to. If that's what the president wants to do, of course I'd support it. But that's the president's call, and we'll see what he decides. I think the president is going to get reelected. I think there's a chance this thing could break in a big way for the president. If that happens, I think you're going to see us keep the Senate and regain the House. All the energy is on our side. I said earlier today, when's the last time you saw a Biden vote parade or any Biden parade out there? So I think the energy is on our side. But if what the president decides to do with his cabinet is totally the president's call. I will say this: what I said earlier. I'm surprised that it took Rick Grinnell to get us information that was critically important that seemed to me the FBI director could have given us years ago. The FBI director has had Hunter Biden's laptop now for months and hasn't done squat with it. So, but whether he stays or goes, that's the president's call.
Congressman, also want to ask you about the Durham probe, which I was skeptical would be finished and or would matter before the election based on just my knowledge of the federal bureaucracy, having been a federal bureaucrat myself. Yeah. What happened with the Durham probe, Congressman?
Well, part of it was, during the early days of the coronavirus lockdown, the grand jury wasn't meeting. So that did slow things down. But I am as frustrated as I think all Americans, because look, I've been on this issue for 3 years, and 3 years ago, Buck, there was just a handful of us in the Congress who were looking at it. There were just a handful of you guys in the press who were looking at it, and it was kind of a lonely place, and we took a lot of heat for it. But it turned out we were right, that this was a complete hoax, and we were hopeful that Bill Barr would do that this would be done this summer. And remember, Bill Barr told us in the spring that there would be something this summer. And yet here we are in the fall and still nothing now, 8 days before an election. But I think part of the reason it was slowed down was the coronavirus. In the end, people need to be held accountable, because if they're not, if they can do this to a president, if they can do this to a 3-star general, Michael Flynn, imagine what they can do to you and I. That's something I've said repeatedly, but that's the part that scares me the most. And that's the main reason why you need to hold people accountable who were engaged in this ridiculous behavior. Speaking
of Congressman Jim Jordan of Ohio, Congressman, the battle for the House, people are saying, is going to be, well, right now at least, the polls seem to be favoring Democrats. You seem confident in the other direction. I know that you can't see the future, but I want your analysis of what you think the future will be next week when it comes to who's going to be in control and whether we have to go through more time with Nancy Pelosi as Speaker of the House. Tell me it's not going to be so, Congressman.
Well, I hope not. And look, the energy is on our side. As I said, if you didn't see all these crazy polls out there, and you were just looking at enthusiasm, energy, stuff you see with your own eyes, these parades, these boat parades, everything else, and all the energy at the president's rallies, you would swear President Trump's going to win in a landslide. So I think the president's going to win. As I said, I think there's a chance it could break big in our direction. If that's the case, then we're going to take back the House. And the other thing that helps us is we got great candidates. In the end, campaigns, it's still, elections are largely about who the candidate is. And we have recruited particularly a lot of women conservative candidates who I think are tremendous. I raised a lot of money for the House Freedom Fund, and we have went out and recruited conservative candidates like Yvette Harrell in New Mexico, like Jeannie Ives in suburban Chicago, some good candidates. This Lauren Boebert, the wonderful candidate in Colorado. So we got good candidates out there. Kevin McCarthy's done a good job of raising the money as well for our team. I think there's a chance if this thing breaks big for the president, which I think is could in fact happen.
Tell us, before I let you go, Congressman, your confidence that the great state of Ohio is going to go red once again. Absolutely critical. It feels like without Ohio, we don't get 4 more years of Trump.
It's going to. Yeah, I mean, look, it feels just like 16, in some ways better than 16. And in 2016, the president won Ohio by 8.5. And I feel like the same dynamics in place to happen this time. I think he's going to win, and he deserves the buck. No one has done more of what they said they would do than this president. Remember, he said he would cut taxes. He did. He said he'd reduce regulations. He did. He said he'd build a wall. He did. He said we'd have a growing economy. We had the best economy before the virus, and now it's coming back. He said he'd get out of the Iran deal. He did. He said he'd put the embassy in Jerusalem. He did. He said he would take on China, and he did. He said he would put out a list of people he would select from to put on the Supreme Court, and he did. Justice Gorsuch, Justice Kavanaugh, and now today, Justice Coney Barrett. So this guy has done more of what he said he would do than any president in our lifetime. And I think in the end, the American people recognize that, and that's why they're going to reelect him.
Congressman Jim Jordan, everybody. Congressman, thanks so much. We'll talk to you soon.
Yeah, Buck. Take care, brother.
Adam Schiff, dishonest guy, totally dishonest guy, made up my conversation, remember the halls of Congress, said quid pro quo 8 times. I didn't say it at all. Isn't it lucky I had a transcriber? Isn't it lucky? Otherwise, it would be my word against Shifty Schiff. But think of it. So Adam Schiff, he's out there, and he's talking about what's taking place. And here it is, the laptop from hell. He said, it's Russia. Here we go again, Russia. I think Russia must look at us and say, these people are stone cold crazy. This is Russian disinformation. I'll tell you what, we got to get back to business. This is crazy what's going on.
They should be embarrassed by this, the libs, the Democrats, but they're not, because it's not about being honest or correct. It's about the attack. It's about the slime. And also the defense here, right? The attack on Trump, that he's part of a Russia collusion scheme again, and the defense of Hunter Biden's laptop and the obvious Biden family scheme that I think now no serious person can pretend is not the truth. Forget about Leslie Stahl. We can't verify that, sure. Which is that Biden was making money. Biden was making a lot of money by selling access. That's what was going on. Biden was making a lot of money, and I mean Hunter Biden and maybe his dad. Now people say, oh, but his financial disclosures and everything else. Okay, I mean, if you're willing to have your son, maybe the son was, why would the son lie about all of this? Why would Hunter Biden say we're going to kick money to the big guy and then not kick money to him? Maybe it just makes the plan seem more legit to the possible co-conspirators that he's working with, and that Joe didn't ever really know about this. But we know that Joe did lie about how much he knew about Hunter's business dealings in general, so he's already a liar. Do you think it's really beyond Joe Biden to, let's say, have access to a bank account set up somewhere in the name of an LLC that he could draw upon sometimes for, unspecified consulting services? I don't know, but it's not that hard to do. Not that hard to do. And Joe Biden does live very well and has for a long time for a guy who makes under 200 grand a year. So there's that. But I'm also very skeptical of this as an important issue that will help with the election. I've been all along saying to you, the Hunter Biden thing, it's nice. Yes, I was excited too. We were right. We've been proven to be right. The media lied. They're a bunch of frauds. All right, that's all good. That's all true. What wins, though? We're not tired of winning. What's going to win this election? I don't think Hunter Biden's emails are going to make a difference. Just telling you that. And how will we know? Well, first we got to see what happens in the election. But afterwards as well, there'll be some ability to check on what independents at least say motivated. We may never know the motives, right? It's difficult to get past that once you think about it out loud. But I just don't see this as being the issue. Because there's so much corruption with Democrats, too. And I mean this, whether it's the Clintons and now with the Bidens, that it just feels like the outrage is exhausted. There's not enough to really move things. But here's an area where I do think there could be some last minute gains against the Democrat side. It has to do with Kamala Harris. Kamala Harris positions herself as a very, savvy political operative senator from California, very technocratic and able for whatever purposes the Democrats need her to be. And yet, when you look into who Kamala Harris really is, she's just the most far left-wing senator of all of them. Really? Let's get into some of the interview that happened with her. And again, Norah O'Donnell, another person. I feel like why am I listening to Norah O'Donnell exactly? Because she's been in the game a while. I feel like she could be on QVC selling wedding dresses just as much as she is in this interview. But anyway, I'm just saying. And she's not the only one that I feel this way about. There are a lot of them out there. I mean, there's the Brian Williams effect. Brian Williams was just like an actor. Anyway, you guys know that stuff drives me nuts. Play 10, please. This is Norah O'Donnell asking Kamala Harris about her voting record.
You're very different in the policies that you've supported in the past. You're considered the most liberal United States senator.
Somebody said that, and it actually was Mike Pence on the debate stage. But
yeah, well, actually, the nonpartisan GovTrack has rated you as the most liberal senator. You supported the Green New Deal. You supported Medicare for all. You've supported legalizing marijuana. Joe Biden doesn't support those things. So are you going to bring the policies, those progressive policies that you supported as senator, into a Biden administration?
What I will do, and I promise you this, and this is what Joe wants me to do, this was part of our deal. I will always share with him my lived experience as it relates to any issue that we confront. And I promised Joe that I will give him that perspective and always be honest with him.
That's a total non-answer from Kamala, as you know. Bring my lived experience. What does that even mean? Bring my lived experience? Don't we all do that to everything we do? It's like such a BS politician phrase there. But here's the issue. Here's the problem. The media is generally, now look, you say, Buck, well, they ask the question here. Look, sometimes they just get a headline. Sometimes they figure it doesn't really matter and the clicks outweigh the cause. Once in a while, right? This is the classic fake Tapper move. He asks one real question a month so that he can run Democrat propaganda the rest of the month and all of his shows and all of his stuff. But there are some conservatives like, oh, well, he tries to be fair. No, 1 out of 100 actual questions is not fair, right? That's just inserting some truth amidst all the rest of the propaganda, which, as we know, that's what the Russians are supposed to be doing all the time, because we're all experts now in disinformatia, all experts in Russian disinformation. So Harris is the most liberal senator. This is another way of saying, friends, Harris is a stealth socialist, right? We know this now. The Green New Deal, Medicare for all, these are the biggest socialist leaps forward and yes, it is a great leap forward that we could take as a country. And Harris was totally on board for them. And now you may say, but Buck, she won't be president. Joe Biden will be. Okay. For how long? How long do we really think that's going to last? Maybe a term. I mean, I'm not going to be the person who says Biden's going to bail after 2 months. I don't think that's true. But I think after the first term, Joe Biden is in a perfect position to say that, he's going to hand the reins over to Kamala. And think about the branding for the Biden family name and the Biden fortune going forward. Joe Biden will be responsible for being the vice president of the first black president in American history for 8 years, and then essentially bring into being or hand off the baton to the first black female president in the history of this country. That's quite a resume for Joe Biden. Without having to ever be in charge during a war, without having to be, during this pandemic, he's just going to blame. If Biden becomes president, that no matter how awful the year 2021 is, he'll blame everything on Trump. This is the Democrat game. Everything will be. Sure, my policies aren't working, and sure, the economy's crap right now, and people have sold their stock, and everyone's just, trying to prepare for this uncertain future by hoarding hard assets, which I think is, by the way, I think that's a good idea. So he'll just blame Trump, so he won't actually have any accountability for what he does in 2021. And then he gets to step aside after that and let Kamala take the reins. Kamala is a stealth socialist. This is how the Democrat Party transitions to socialism in a way where they don't have to have a Bernie Sanders who's standing up there saying, I am a socialist.